I now convene the April 23rd, 2013 Westchester Township Trustee meeting. Roll call.
Mr. Wong?
Present.
Mrs. Stoker?
Here.
Mr. Lang?
Here.
Please arise for the pledge. Allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Mr. Wong, before we start the meeting, I'd like the record to show I have a personal conflict tonight, and I will be leaving at about 6:45.
Okay, citizens comment. We have Mr. Dave Brown from Butler County Auditor Office.
Thank you very much. David Brown with the Butler County Auditor's Office, 130 High Street in Hamilton. And as you might notice, I look a little bit different. I put my hair up to support the American Cancer Society and the Lakota West Relay for Life. We've had I'll say young lady endure cancer this year and is currently cancer-free, so we're very thankful about that. But the Auditor's Office really got involved. We've currently raised over $4,000, and we're supporting the Relay for Life at Lakota West High School, which is coming up May 17th. And I'm currently the #1 fundraiser on that list out of over 220, raised over $1,000. Put my hair on the line, and we got that shaved off on Friday.
Did I see Roger shaving your head, David?
I am committed to doing this through May 17th, and after that I might reevaluate. But until then, we'll be supporting those that have fought the good fight with cancer and continue to do so. And it's a wonderful opportunity for those to knock me off my perch. At #1, I encourage competition. So hopefully, I know the Lakota East is having one as well, and it's the same date. So you couldn't ask for a better organization to support the American Cancer Society. So I'm wearing my clean head proudly in support of that tonight. Homestead exemption for the Butler County Auditor's Office coming up almost exactly 6 weeks away. That's going to be June the 3rd. Monday, June the 3rd is the deadline for that. We asked for a copy of a photo ID. The forms are available on the website. They can download that, and there are no income limitations for those 65 and older, permanently, totally disabled. They would qualify. The average savings in Butler County is about $375, and that shields the first $25,000 in value. And so we definitely encourage those. If they turn 65 anytime during the year, they can apply before the June deadline, and then that would take place in the first half next year of their taxes when 2013 comes payable in 2014.
Do they need to reapply each year?
Only if there's a change in their status. If they've sold the
home, they got younger,
or something
for
changes. Well, in certain circumstances, in a marriage situation, a spouse may be much younger. The one spouse might pass away that was qualified, and the younger spouse would no longer qualify. So there are certain things just to remind people to reevaluate their status. We do send out reminders every year, and we always get extras that come in that they didn't need to do it. But we would rather do that than have somebody miss out if there was a change. So we definitely send those out. But if you qualified and nothing's changed, you don't have to mail that reminder back in. So we would just encourage folks to do that. And then levies, we're out just telling people. I know local government funds have been cut for everybody. I sit on school board in Ross, and I know times are tough, and levies are always something that we have to look at. And if you might be considering that, we're just reminding folks August 7th is the deadline to have everything filed with the Board of Elections. For our office, we generally have an input with that and help out local governments. We're asking to try to get some of that information by June, so we have plenty of time to get information back to you so you can have the resolutions passed and everything to the Board of Elections in plenty of time to get everything accomplished that you need to get accomplished. So those are some things we're just reminding local governments about. And that's it. Hopefully I stayed in my time limit. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Okay. Action items. I will entertain a motion to approve trustee meeting minutes, March 12, 2013.
Also move.
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Wong?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
I will entertain a motion to approve trustee meeting minutes for March 26, 2013.
Also move.
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Wong?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
Item C, I will entertain a motion to approve trustee meeting minutes for April 9th, 2013.
Also move.
I was not there, so
Would you like to second, Mr. Wong?
Second. Roll call. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Wong,
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker,
Yes.
Mr. Lang.
I'll abstain.
I will entertain a motion to approve payment of bills.
Also move.
I'll second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Wong,
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker,
Yes.
Mr. Lang.
Yes.
Mrs. Boyko, requisition greater than $2,500.
Item 1, the Finance and Information Technology Department is requesting a renewal for the annual service and support agreement with OnVSource Incorporated in the amount of $5,839.50. This is for the continued maintenance and support of the recording hardware and software, which is used to record voice conversations and radio traffic for our Emergency Communications Dispatch Center, Police Department, and Fire Department. Item 2, services $16,539.88 to the Butler County Engineer's Office for materials to replace and improve a 42-inch culvert on Red Mill Drive. This particular improvement was identified as part of the 2013 storm pipe replacement capital improvement program, and the Community Services Department is recommending that this replace this, as I said, the 42-inch galvanized corrugated pipe. Consistent with the expanded shared services relationship that we have with the Butler County Engineer's Office, the County Engineer's Office has agreed to improve and replace and improve this particular pipe for the cost of only materials to the township. They will be using their equipment and their expert personnel in order to make this improvement. Item 3, services $15,000 to Rush Truck Centers of Ohio, and this is to repair a 2001 International dump truck. It was identified as a capital improvement for the 2013 budget.
I will entertain a motion for item 1 through 3.
I'll make a motion we approve items 1 through 3.
I'll second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Wong,
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker,
Yes.
Mr. Lang.
Yes.
Ms. Boyko, personnel items.
Requesting the board's consideration to approve a proposed organizational restructuring plan. The plan incorporates eliminating the Westchester TV department, community television department, creating the integrated multimedia and marketing department, eliminating, reclassifying, or creating certain positions, and promoting or reclassifying certain employees. The organizational restructuring proposal is not to dissolve the operations of the Westchester Community Television Department, rather to eliminate the department per se, but the operations and functions of the Westchester Community Television local cable access will continue to exist and will work more closely with other township multimedia and marketing operations. Prior to my tenure as the township administrator, the township's efforts to communicate to and with its consumers, residents, corporate stakeholders, businesses, workforce, and other partners and entities were less robust, and was predominantly achieved through Westchester TV. While not increasing the size or cost of government, the township's methods to communicate have expanded through its website, content management, social media, electronic newsletters, advertising LED signs, and, of course, the continued operations of the Westchester Community Television. Integrating Westchester TV with the other multimedia and marketing medium will create economies of operational scales, reduce annual costs by approximately $70,000, and achieve greater market reach. I do have a proposed motion for your consideration, which is listed at the bottom of your memorandum.
I will entertain a motion for item 4.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed organizational restructuring plan as illustrated on the attached documents, eliminating and consolidating the WCC TV department and the Public Information and Marketing Office to create the Integrated Multimedia and Marketing Department, creating the positions of Director of Integrated Multimedia and Marketing, Integrated Multimedia Production Specialist, and Public Relations Coordinator, and reclassifying or eliminating other organizational positions and placing certain current employees accordingly. approving applicable job descriptions, revising the applicable township organizational charts, and the exempt and non-exempt compensation program to reflect the changed positions, and promoting Mrs. Barbara Wilson to the Director of Integrated Multimedia and Marketing effective April 24, 2013 at the annual rate of $74,000.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion?
I think this is great for the township. We're going to end up saving a total of $70,000. We're actually reducing personnel by consolidating departments. And yes, it is a promotion and a raise and additional responsibility for Miss Wilson. And in my opinion, it's well deserved. She's been a very long, loyal, dedicated, and just an amazing employee of the township. And I have no problem with this recommendation.
Yeah, I have no problem either. This is well within the tradition that really has been established over the last 10 years or so of constantly eliminating unnecessary personnel through attrition, consolidation, reorganization, reassignment, such that I think this makes about the 25th position which has either been eliminated or not filled, and allowing us to operate at a more lean level, to operate more efficiently. I think all of us can agree. We can differ on a lot of things, but I think we all agree that it is incumbent upon us to do everything we can to keep our operation, particularly in the administrative level, as lean as possible, as lean as it can be, and still provide the essential services or core competencies that our township residents and businesses expect of us. So far, the restructuring we have been doing with the full implementation of the bridge year that we did last year in 2012, Westchester will realize an estimated $450,000 in reduced costs from last year. Expanded shared service with the Butler County Engineers Office have resulted in $300,000 of annual savings. And when you roll up the past 10 years or so of reorganizations and reassignments, we are now currently realizing an approximate cost reduction of $1.275 million a year. That's a lot of money which can go into, quite frankly, like roads, which is always underfunded as far as dedicated funds go. So.
I agree. Yep. And if you think about how we've grown now, we're up to 60,000 residents, 3,000 businesses, 50,000 daytime employees, and the sharing and delivery of information for our stakeholders is more critical than ever, especially given the recent events on the nation. You know, we're not immune from those events happening here. You know, we have big events where a lot of people are gathered, and we're not immune for those. So I think providing accurate and timely information is the expectation of our community stakeholders, and this open communication is going to be a hallmark of our mission, and this reorganization is going to help us to do that, in my opinion, more effectively and more cost efficiently.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I think we are blessed to have a staff that is constantly, instead of just doing the same old, constantly looking for ways to improve what they do, and they wholeheartedly embrace new technologies which help us. For example, the reorganization of our IT center and what we're currently doing here in the way we handle information and the way we handle our interface with our residents and businesses. We are very, very fortunate to have some exceptional people that work so hard to always keep us abreast and on top of the technological developments.
I agree with both my fellow trustee. The restructuring plans makes our organization even leaner without reducing the delivery of service. And we always strive to perform and operate with just enough resources, both human and capital. Anything else? Roll call?
Mr. Wong?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
Ms. Boyko, item 5.
Earlier this season, at one of the Board of Trustees meetings, the Board did approve the hiring of 12 seasonal positions for the Community Services Department, spread out over the respective disciplines. At this time, we are requesting the Board's consideration to hire 2 April through October seasonal employees, Mr. William Shibler with roads, effective April 15th, 2013, and Mr. Jacob Wyant with roads, effective April 29th, 2013, and 2 May through September seasonal employees, Mr. Kevin Kick in the Parks Division, effective May 1st, 2013, and Mr. Stephen Anderson in the Roads Division, effective May 6th, 2013, all at the hourly rate of $11.25. With the implementation and successful hiring of these 4 seasonal employees, you have reached over half of the 12 complement. This would be a 7th hire.
I will entertain a motion for item 5.
Also move.
I'll second it.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Wong,
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker,
Yes.
Mr. Lang.
Yes.
Ms. Michael, business item.
Periodically, the Board of Trustees has advertised requests for proposals for depository and banking services, and it's the recommendation of our Finance and Information Technology Director to request the Board to advertise requests for proposals for depository and banking services for January 1st, 2014 through December 31st, 2018. Obviously, the contract currently with Fifth Third Bank expires at the end of this year, and you all approved that contract on August 11th of 2009. It was advertised for a 5-year term, but the Board did approve a 4-year term, as we said, January 1st, 2010 through the end of this year. We are developing the RFP, so it does reserve the Township's right and the Board of Trustees' right to reject any proposal or reduce the term as it was advertised in the RFP.
I will entertain a motion for item 6.
Also move.
I'll second it.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Wong,
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker,
Yes.
Mr. Lang.
Yes.
Item 7.
At the Board of Trustees' April 9th, 2013 meeting, the Westchester Baseball Partnership offered and presented a proposal requesting the Township's consideration and the Trustees' consideration to establish a naming rights program for the fields at the Westchester Baseball Complex. Based on discussions it had with a potential sponsor, the Westchester Baseball Partnership identified several signs and locations, including the proposing naming rights program. The information that was presented by one of the representatives and principals of the baseball partnership basically indicated that it was a 5-year agreement, although the exact terms and conditions have not yet been established, but they did present to you generally the concept of the naming rights program and what the baseball partnership would endeavor to contract. It is my understanding and position, if the proposal only grants naming rights to the fields and not the entire complex, and most signs are only visible from within the complex, the National Park Service approval is not necessary. Staff has reviewed the initial concept against the governing documents, namely the National Park Service governing documents, the lease agreement between the Westchester Township Board of Trustees and the Baseball Partnership, and then also specific zoning restrictions. And at this time, based on the concept plan that was presented, staff has no concerns with the proposal as it was presented. Again, a sample motion has been developed for your consideration in deliberating this item.
I will entertain a motion for item 7.
I would make a motion then to permit the Westchester Baseball Partnership, WCBP, to establish a field naming rights program at the Westchester Baseball Complex with conditions as already presented to and accepted by the Westchester Baseball Partners in generally encompassing. Do we need to?
Probably.
Okay.
For the motion.
Generally encompassing any executed naming rights agreement with a sponsor must survive successors, heirs, assignees, etc. in the event the Westchester Baseball Partnership, also known as WCBP, does not hold the lease agreement with the township to manage and operate the WCBC, and any identification, sponsor, directional, or other proposed signage of the naming rights program and their location, size, copy, etc., shall be subject to the governing documents of the National Park Service, to the applicable resolutions of Westchester zoning, and consistent with the terms and conditions of the lease agreement, and proper assurances must be received by a credible source certifying the infrastructure to which a sign is adhered can handle the load.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Wong?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
Item 8.
Community Development Department would like the board to declare 2 properties as public nuisances, a 9228 Center Point Drive and 9183 Center Point Drive. A sample motion is at the top of page 2, I believe. Yes, page 2 of your memorandum.
Entertain a motion for item 8.
I'll make the motion. Having reviewed the staff reports and affidavits, I move that we declare the properties listed on the Westchester Township Board of Trustees meeting agenda dated April 23rd, 2013 to be public nuisances as authorized by the Ohio Revised Code. Staff is directed to cause removal of the nuisances identified and monitor these properties for 90 days to require continued compliance. An administrative charge of 25% shall be added to the contractor fee for these properties.
A second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
Yeah, Judy, did someone call and complain on this property, do you know?
Historically and previously, yes.
Okay. I just noticed that as you look through it, yeah, there was a problem, but usually when we see the nuisances, it's a big problem. This is just a little one. I was just curious. Obviously, it's still a nuisance, but the severity isn't where it normally is.
Well, I think the concern has been in our business district.
I would agree.
You like to present a groomed, clean, and some property owners haven't been able to keep their property at the level that we'd like to
Well, this
see.
is a bankrupt one that's in
Yeah.
bankruptcy proceedings now, so
Yeah. And
absent property owner.
the weeds are getting pretty high.
Roll call?
Mr. Wong?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
Item 9 is removed. Item 10.
Quarterly, we bring to the board, quarterly or semi-annual, I apologize. I think semi-annually, we bring to the Board of Trustees a motion to approve a statutory resolution that declares surplus items for disposal. As you are aware, the Ohio Revised Code does permit anything of $2,500 or less that the board determines to be no longer of value, obsolete, or unfit for township services or use. You may declare it as obsolete, and we could then dispose of those items appropriately. So motion to approve statutory resolution number 05-2013, declaring surplus items for disposal.
I will entertain a motion for item 10.
Also move.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Wong?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
Item 11.
I alluded to the 2013 stormwater pipe replacement program and part of it as a capital improvement during the 2013 operational budget. It's the Community Services Department's request to advertise for the 2013 stormwater pipe replacement program, budgeted for all items, obviously excluding the red mill because the county engineer's office has agreed to perform the services. The materials have been budgeted, but obviously not the work. And the budget of that CIP amount is $180,000. This, upon approval by the Board of Trustees, this particular replacement program will be advertised according to statute, and we will, of course, bring back to you for acceptance of any bids at a later meeting.
I will entertain the motion for item 11.
I'll make the motion that we approve the request to advertise for the 2013 stormwater pipe replacement program.
I'll second.
Discussion?
I think
Oh, sorry.
this is one of those essential services that you like to call core competencies. We must maintain our stormwater pipe and our culverts, or we lose our roads. So this is one of the things that we have spent so much time and effort over the years, cataloging, analyzing, evaluating, and scheduling replacements for culverts and for cleanups and repairs. Absolutely essential, and it's also one of these terribly essential items that this township, like townships and cities all across the state, do not receive enough dedicated funds to even begin, from our, say, the portion we get from license or from gasoline taxes. So these are one of the things that our general fund is must step in because we must maintain these roads. Absolutely essential.
And it's not sexy, it's not exciting, it's not new, it's not vibrant, but it has to be done.
Must, yeah, must do.
Roll call?
Mr. Wong?
Yes.
Mrs. Stover?
Yes.
Mr. Lennon?
Yes.
Citizens' comment. Please state your name and address.
My name is Dan Meehan, and I live at 9412 Patty Circle, Westchester. I just want to comment on that last item that you brought up. That's not the reason I'm up here, but I was just wondering if they ever thought about making an offer to property owners who have those drainage swales in their front yard. If if you pay half, we'll pay the other half to put a pipe in, and then you eliminate all that constant maintenance that you have to take care of, and they also have to take care of, which is kind of quite a nuisance. It's dangerous to cut some of those. Anyhow, that's not what I'm here about. This past weekend, I was able to spend a little time in my yard. It was kind of cold, but I was out there. And while I was out there, about 3 blocks away, somebody was having target practice with a gun. And this has happened before. And this is a time to bring this up for me. I mean, this is disgusting that you can discharge a firearm in an area like this. I remember several years ago this was going on, and apparently it was pretty bad because someone other than myself called the police to see if something couldn't be done. And the lady that answered the telephone in the police department said, well, we've got a number of complaints, and there's a police officer on his way, and we're going to see what we can do about it. And I got a call later stating that really isn't much they can do about it, but it was being supervised. And to me, I guess, supervised. I guess that means kids are doing this. Are they going to be supervised all the time? This is 3 blocks away from my home. This piece of property, we have these zoned agricultural areas, little pods around various parts of the community, and apparently this is where this kind of stuff goes on, because I've heard it in other areas also. I mean, I can hear the guns going off. So the thing about this is that this property that I'm referring to, that this was going on last weekend, was sold this past year, and I thought, well, that'll be great. We don't have to put up with this anymore. These are new people. The gun that was being used this particular day was an automatic weapon. It wasn't skeet shooting. It was probably something, I don't know what it was. You could hear the regular sound of the bullets being fired. So, now I'm going to go to an area where I'm sure that, oh boy, we're going to have trouble with this guy. Incorporation. Every time incorporation comes up, it gets thrown aside because it's going to involve earnings tax. And a lot of people don't like the earnings tax, and a lot of people do. But there's more to incorporation than an earnings tax. We can do things with our laws that we can't do now. For instance, my understanding is we can be more restrictive, but not less restrictive when we have when we're incorporated. So this would help take care of that problem. We can stop it. There are other things that go on that I've noticed over the years. For instance, we have many big developments on corners, like up at the corner of Cox and Route 42, there's a shopping center. And at one time we had the senior citizens meeting place there. And every time you walk out the door, there's a car going by because I cut through it. And I've talked to the police about that, and they can't do anything about that. Because we have to use the state law. We can't be more restrictive. I remember when I first moved out here, there was a car that was parked in the public right-of-way on the grass, a little small car, and it sat there for months. And finally I called up and I thought, I'll try and see what happens, and nothing we can do about it. It sat there, and finally the grass was growing up alongside it. The kids started using spray paint and put some graffiti on it, right in a residential area. And it was a nice area. So my point is that I think maybe we ought to forget the earnings tax, but let's incorporate so we can do some things that we need to do, some safety issues that need to be addressed. There were some other things that I was going to point out. The last election, the big election that we had about 3 or 4 years ago, I remember this was a hot issue in corporation, and I remember the newspaper articles were interviewed all the candidates that were running for trustee, and one of the big things about this is we don't want to incorporate because it's big government. Well, that's hogwash. I lived in a community for about 30 years, and I had my practice in another community for about 35 years, and both of these were incorporated areas. Both of them entirely different. One of them was a small area of population of probably 3,000 people. And they have a mayor and 6 council people. They have a fire department, a police department, a maintenance department. They even have their own water department. And one of the things that I always marveled at when I first moved there is when we had a heavy snow, and the first time I went to my office on a heavy snow, my sidewalk was cleaned off by the city or the village. So here's a village that's 2,800 people. They don't even have an earnings tax, and they get all these things done. And there's another reason why they've got some money, but nevertheless, the point is they don't have an earnings tax. The community that I lived in did have an earnings tax, and I was part of it to get that in, not the earnings tax, but to get incorporation. I was part of that, and we pushed it through, and it worked, and then about 2 or 3 years later, they got involved with an earnings tax. But again, the one that had, without the earnings tax, before we even had an earnings tax, before we started, we had a mayor, 6 council people. We had a service department, a police department, and whatever else we need to run a village. That wasn't big government. It's no more than what we have right now. In fact, we've got more here. Again, my point is, I think we need to consider incorporation to take care of some of these problems that we can take care of, and we're limited because we're not incorporated. That's it.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mark Welch. I live at 5879 Alness Drive. I wanted to share 2 ideas for the board's consideration. Largely it's due to the last 3 meetings over the last month and a half regarding the bike hike path and other sorts of these projects that come up that have discretionary income associated with it that we would pay for these things with. Carl Ruhlman said it great last meeting when he talked about the folks that were here and that they were a special interest group supporting the bike hike path and that we'd never see him again. And I think he's pretty accurate about that. And so how can the trustees purport to know the will of the people in Westchester when folks get all fired up and come and sit in the one meeting and then disappear? And so, now I will say that I have not done an exhaustive study of the Westchester Township website, but what I see, it's really nice. But I would suggest updating the website so that we could put some kind of a survey or a poll on there, that when these kinds of projects come up, where we want to know the will of the people, we might get the word out and drive people to the website where a survey could be updated depending upon whatever the project or the issue is. And then we could really find out what people are thinking. And we might have some kind of threshold, 100 or 200 people that have to respond in order for it to be statistically valid. And you'd have to make sure that people don't vote more than once. So businesses do this kind of thing. I'm a business owner in Westchester. And before we invest any money at our company, we make sure that we know that there's a need and there's sufficient benefits. I'm always looking at return on investment. Usually it's money. But it could be, goodwill, and it could be the fact that, the bike hike path is connecting the east with the west, but you don't really know. The second idea is regarding projects like the bike hike path. And I have had the privilege of being a part of a couple Mercy Fairfield fundraising events. Actually, I've sat on a board with these fundraisers. And one was the fifth floor private room initiative, and I'm currently on a fundraising board that we are trying to raise money for the infant care facility to bring it up to the 21st century. Anyway, fundraising is kind of a science. I don't purport to know how to do it. I just connect people with people. But I think it might be interesting if the township decided to maybe look at a fundraising initiative for the bike hike path. And maybe what we could do is the Westchester Township would do a matching. So if the bike hike path is $400,000, Westchester Township might say, okay, we're going to pony up $200,000. Let's find out what the will of the people is, and let's see if we can do a fundraising event to raise the other $200,000. And then you could actually, there's many volunteers. All the people that were sitting in this meeting the last meeting that shared their support for it. I think there was mentioned 5,000 homeowners that were in the area, that would benefit from this. There was also mention that the businesses would benefit from more business and better business. It might be that you could actually, in the fundraising event, approach a business like Kroger. And you might say, hey, listen, we're putting this thing together, and we'd like for you to contribute to this thing because it's going to help your business. And then we might put a little commemorative plaque by the sidewalk that says, who are the big donors. And it came to my mind as I was thinking about this over the last week that remember all the flack a couple years ago with Susan G. Komen and the fact that they were donating money to places where people didn't think they should donate it. What I realized then is that a lot of these charitable organizations take in money and then they give charitably to other charitable organizations. So it could be that there would be a charitable organization that would like to give to this to commemorate maybe the Halo Foundation or something like that. So just for your consideration, another way where business and government might work together, to get the job done. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Boyko, discussion items and trustee comments. Do we have any? All right. Does anyone want to comment on the citizens' comments?
Does Mrs. Boyko have anything she can offer on some of the comments? I know,
regarding Mr. Meehan?
like in the target practicing in the backyard,
Perhaps the trustees want to first discuss.
I would like to offer my thoughts on what Mr. Meehan said. I have a lot of respect for Dan, and we agree on most things, but this is one topic where Dan and I will not agree on. I think incorporation is wrong for a whole bunch of reasons. I think it's wrong because the earnings tax, it only creates more money. Don't give us the money. We're a government. We're not responsible. I think the only way for us to handle government is to, my term, defund the beast. When you say big government is hogwash, I would violently argue against that. I think just what you described, 2,800 people, 1 mayor, 6 council, to me that's out of control government. The fact that they're cleaning your sidewalks is out of control government. They have way too much money than they need to do if they're able to clean private citizens' sidewalks. That's not a core competency of government. I think the best government is small government. Some of the issues that you brought up have to do with private property ownership rights, and some of your issues may be valid, and I think we have ways to address some of those issues if, in fact, we decide that they are valid issues. But the reality is, in a township, as long as it's done under proper conditions, a person can discharge a firearm on their property. The training that was taking place may not have been for kids at all. Maybe it was. And if it was, I hope it was. I hope kids are being trained on the proper usage of a gun by someone who's qualified to train them. But it could have been concealed carry class training for adults so that adults are properly trained on the proper discharge of a gun, how to handle it, how to use it, and all the laws that are involved in it. So even though I have a lot of respect for Mr. Meehan, I strongly disagree with what he said and with every single point that he brought up. I just would find myself in disagreement.
Ms. Boyko, will you have the police chief send someone to check out the safety aspect of the shooting out there with automatic weapons, like Mr. Meehan said, public safety that we need to be looked at?
I have the same problem in the ravine behind my house. Just about 3 days ago, it sure sounded like, in fact, the guys who were painting on my house said that was a semi-automatic firearm of some kind, and it wasn't 3 blocks away. It was right behind my house. We have a problem in a township because that's allowed. You would think we would be restricted within a certain number of feet of a residence. I'm not sure that saying you couldn't discharge it closer than, say, X hundred feet would mean anything, in as much as there's an awful lot of firearms that can fire a bullet that'll travel a couple of miles. That seems to be one of the joys of living in a township, is being able to fire firearms. I'm not sure what we could do to...
I think Trustee Lang is absolutely correct that the statute does permit the discharge of firearms on private property in residential areas as long as certain terms and conditions and mandates are met. We certainly can express those this evening. If you'd like, I can invite the chief up here to do that, or if it's your preference, we certainly can follow up with Mr. Meehan. I believe, though, that they can only respond if the incident is, obviously if there's a complaint, but I think even more importantly, the ability to do anything is if the offense is taking is as active at the moment they arrive and they witness it. But certainly they can follow up on the complaint and go, but if the board would like to hear anything this evening, please let me know and we can...
Would you like to have the chief?
Yeah, I'd be interested in knowing, are there some common sense things we can look at? It has to be X amount of feet from a resident. I think there are some things we can look at that certainly make sense to explore.
Well, not only that, but what is there between the discharged firearm and the nearest resident? Is there nothing? Or is there a hill? Or
there should be a big mound of dirt.
And that bullet can ricochet off something else.
all kinds of things can happen.
A lot of funny things happen.
Would you like...
Let's have Chief Niehaus.
It's a pleasure of the board. Would the board like to have some discussion this evening? Or?
Could you ask them? Could you ask if the chief could come up maybe and give us the statute that applies to...
Are you prepared to do that, Chief? Just give us... All right. And then we can have a little further in-depth report in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I know I talked to Mr. Meehan. It's been maybe a year and a half ago. I'm not sure the last time we discussed this. I assume it's the same property that we discussed the last time. If it is, we did respond out the last time that we had some of these calls. People were operating within the bounds of the law. Again, there are issues. There are really limited issues with firing on private property. It's going to be allowed in most cases. Things you can't do off the top of my head are you're not going to be able to fire across a roadway, obviously. You're not going to be able to fire into a residence. There is no set limit right now on the number of feet you have to be away from a property line.
Chief, I don't believe that you can fire a fully automatic weapon either. I think it has to be a semi-automatic. And maybe it was a semi-automatic. Someone was just firing real quick.
And I can say from experience sake that I've fired a semi-automatic that, in rapid succession that will...
You can actually modify your...
That will sound
allegedly,
like that, sure.
You can modify
and again,
your semi-automatic.
And I don't know if Mr. Meehan called this past weekend, and I've already, while the discussion was going on, I already sent an email to get the information that I need for tomorrow to check out any calls that we had over the weekend, any calls we've had related to this property since we talked a year and a half ago. I can tell you that we've had no reports that I'm aware of anything related to an unsafe situation where we had rounds or bullets crossing property lines, striking anyone's house, causing an injury or property damage that I'm aware of at all in this case, or really for the most part any cases in the township off the top of my head. But I am very happy to prepare something for Mrs. Boyko for dissemination, kind of detailing or even outlining the laws that are pertinent in this case.
I do have one question. Yeah, are these statutes, does only the state have the authority to devise statutes, Or do municipalities also have the ability to devise statutes that control the use of firearms? Do townships have the authority to create statutes that control the use of firearms?
I don't know if I'd be the best one to ask that question to. I apologize. That may be for our law
Maybe we
director.
could ask our...
Under statutory or limited home rule government, potentially your authority may be greater, but obviously that would be a policy decision by the Board of Trustees. We certainly can, as part of this review process, discuss with the law director and bring to just what potential options were. I know that Trustee Lang voiced that he has no interest in perhaps potentially restricting it unless it's for safety precautions and hazards. But we certainly can engage the law director to see if there's other authority.
I don't think it hurts to know what the statutes are.
If someone is going to fire a weapon at midnight while people are sleeping, I'm sure we can set a...
I doubt it.
Well, we may have a potential noise violation at that point. Mr. Wong,
Yeah,
we
you
may
have
have
every
a
right to
noise
protect
ordinance
yourself.
or noise resolution issue.
Okay. Now, is there, just off the top of your head, is there any limitations on the caliber of the weapon?
Not that I'm aware of, no. Not per state law, at least.
So it could be any firearm, as long as it's not fully automatic?
Yeah, typically, and again, as long as it's not, under state law, for the most part, the caliber is not going to be as much of an issue as it is the automatic weapons, as Mr. Long just mentioned.
Or whether you're firing across a road or a property boundary.
Right. I think near a cemetery or across a cemetery, those are things that are specifically spelled out in the statute. And again, I can be happy to prepare something, and I'm even happy to look at examples of what other cities have used.
So if the board's pleasure, staff could outline the statute as it exists today and its implication and application to township form of government, and then we can review that with the law director and see if there's any expansion of that authority because of our limited home rule status. Does that sound like what you are engaging and want to?
Yeah, I would encourage you to do it, not that, from my perspective, only necessarily looking for more regulations, but I would just like to know what the current rules are and what the options are.
Okay.
I agree with Mr. Lang.
We will endeavor to have that for your next meeting, but in the event that it takes more time for the law director to review, is that okay if we just present it to you?
You may want to wait until the meeting after that. The next meeting, Mr. Wong has to leave early.
Oh, correct.
So it's going to be a relatively short meeting, I assume.
Just want to make sure there was no urgency in getting that review done.
I've got one.
I might note, if I may, that there was an article recently in the Ohio Township Association publication about discharging firearms in townships, and it spoke to the issue that people can discharge firearms on their property, and essentially the projectile, the bullet, what have you, cannot land in adjoining property. It can't be shot over it. It can't be fired over streets, roads, parks, or anything of this sort. Otherwise, legislative action is within the purview of the Ohio Revised Code and municipalities, but not townships. But I mean, certainly double check on that.
Thank you. Mrs. Stoker, do you have any trustee comments?
Yes. Based on the overwhelming support we have had so far for the connector, the proposed bike path connector, between which would join the Beckett Ridge, the private Beckett Ridge bike path, and the private bike path that was built across 747 at the villages, as well as joining a number of our local residential communities to Beckett Park and to our business communities along 747. I would like to propose at this time that we move forward on this project with respect to having the engineer. He has offered to do drawings for us at his cost. Move forward with perusing the types of funding available, which would be either from general fund or from the 747 TIF. It could be done with borrowing, or it could be done with the funds that we have on hand. But I think with the overwhelming support that we've seen forward, I think it behooves us to move forward. I realize that Mr. Lang had to leave early, but I think he's been quite clear about his opinions about the bike path. But I think the support, the strong support we saw for it, certainly justifies us moving forward with that project.
I agree. I think that there is overwhelming support for the bike path, And that, are we looking at the TIF funding?
I think it ought to be considered. It seems to be that's the most viable because that is funding that we can use. It's appropriate for it. The funding is there. It would not strain the TIF with respect to any of the other responsibilities that TIF is currently funding, like we did 747 improvements using that TIF.
Yes.
But I think before we say, yes, we're going to build it, we need to have, for example, the engineer's drawings to know exactly what kind of right-of-ways would be used. Would they be right-of-way which is already part of the public, or would be right-of-way we would have to gain from, say, private owners along the way? So, but I think this is information we would need to have before we can move forward with it, and I see no reason to delay.
Agreed. Well, Mrs. Boyko, you have the majority of the board.
Just want to I feel compelled to reiterate that at your last meeting, the board decided that you wanted to wait for a full board to have that conversation and have that dialogue, and so I'm just reminding you two that was your position at the last meeting. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Trustee Lang doesn't have the benefit of being here to contribute to the discussion and the dialogue before assigning it as a project.
It's a problem, though, with continually delaying projects if one or more trustees can't make it, particularly in this case where Mr. Lang has been very clear he's absolutely against it. So it isn't as though his discussion, and he said why. He apparently ties it to a United Nations Agenda 21.
I think that was the grant application. I'm not sure that's his position on the project. Well, regardless, I'm not trying to advocate either position. I just wanted to make sure that I felt remind you of that position you had last meeting.
Right.
Certainly, whatever direction the majority presents and proposes, I certainly will follow. But I guess if you could give me more information on, do you want me to go ahead and start to develop a schedule of the project for this year?
Correct.
What it would take, what are the critical action items, assigning some schedule and deadline, maybe a Gantt chart kind of thing for the project?
Correct.
Is that what you're
right? And I don't
requesting?
Yeah, and I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would like to see maybe you can get this project going this year before it runs out.
Well, I think before
it has been scheduled for 2 years now.
Well, it hasn't been scheduled. It's been identified as a capital improvement. Of course, no direction has been granted by the Board of Trustees or no direction to proceed with the project. This is the closest we've gotten to it. I guess I just want to make sure I want to understand what the board is. We certainly can endeavor to schedule it for this year's construction. However, because we don't have any of the construction drawings, we haven't even done preliminary engineering drawings, there's going to be some work that needs to be completed prior to me coming back to you and saying, okay, here are the details. Here's the width of the pavement, here's the depth of the pavement, or concrete, here's exactly what the project entails, so that you can make an educated decision about what you're approving and directing construction.
Exactly, and I think this also meets the point you raised, which I thought was appropriate to raise, and that is that decision would come, we would hope Mr. Lang would be able, his schedule would allow him to be here for that discussion. But it's hard to say yes or no definitively on a project if we don't know this preparatory engineer. I have made it very clear that I support this project, but with certain caveats, like I expect to see that the entities whose properties are going to be affected would also support it. For the obvious case being, remember the Dimmick Road, when the people involved didn't want a sidewalk on their road, so we didn't build it. I would like to know, and of course the people whose property, like Tri-County Baptist or McDonald's or whatever, it's hard for them to give us a definitive yes or no if they don't see the drawings and have a better understanding of exactly what this project would entail.
During the application process and the board's consideration of that OK application, we did approach all of the property owners and describe to them, to the best of our understanding, what this project looks like or would look like. And all of them conceptually said they are in favor of that, but you're exactly right. Until we made it very clear to them and disclosed that until we can present to them the actual preliminary engineering and the actual layout of what this looks like, we understand that their approval is conditional. So what I'm gleaning from the board is there's a majority to direct me to put together a schedule of critical action items, what it would look like and what would need to be done in order to complete this project in hopes of this year's construction season. Is that what I'm...
Yes.
That's what I'm thinking of. And what I was thinking is we will then have the information before us when Mr. Lang is here so that we all know exactly what we're talking about. We all know exactly what we're voting on at that time. But I don't see any reason to delay doing that.
That's correct. Let's get all the particulars.
Okay, well, what I will do then is at your next meeting I can bring, well, I know Trustee Wong, you have an abbreviation for the meeting because of your obligation to the Butler County EMA, but we certainly can try to bring to you that schedule, and then from there you can determine which critical items you want us to commence.
Yes. You have anything else?
Yes, I'd just like to say since our last meeting we've had some horrific tragedies affect this country. And I know all of us are praying for those people who have been harmed, for their loved ones, their families that are suffering terribly. And I know that it's in all of our minds and hearts how important it is to keep our community as safe as we can, how important it is for us to be constantly reaching out to all elements of our community to keep communication open. I think it's when there is a sense of non-communication that maybe can add to tensions, which can, if not precipitating a violent confrontation. I personally, speaking as one trustee, think these people are crazy. But that's just me. But the problem we also have to be concerned about is backlash. We have to worry about the entire safety of our community from without and from within. And I think it behooves all of us to pray with everything we've got to whomever we think might help for understanding, for forbearance, for carefulness on and integrity and attention on the part of those who are tasked with the safety of our community. And to pray that we never have such a situation here. It's just devastating.
Likewise. My heart goes out to the victim of the incident in Boston. And also I watched the police and fire, all the emergency services operate cooperatively, and make me think of this township. We have good police department and fire department, all the emergency services. We are very fortunate to have fire departments here. That I know that if we have any of that sort of emergencies, our officers and firemen and EMS will respond accordingly and effectively.
I know our department heads, I'm sure, have reached out to the first responders in West Texas, for example, where that fertilizer plant blew up. I believe West Texas lost 1/3 of their emergency responders just like that. Right. Just like that. They rushed out there to try and save lives and property, and they're dead. Which brings home to me how important it is regulations are for controlling businesses and sites which can be contain explosive hazardous materials. This is something no community wants to have happen to them. The loss is so tragic, and it was unnecessary in my eyes. But I'm just speaking as one trustee. We've got to be always aware of the safety of our community.
I'm on the county EMA board this year, and that I know that they're very actively engaged with our communities, the police department and fire department, constantly conducting exercise drills. They also send personnel to incidents like that in Texas, fire incidents, to learn.
Mm-hmm. To help where they can.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Very sad.
Yes. I have nothing else. We have no executive session. I now hereby declare this meeting. I'll take a vote.
I make a move. We adjourn this meeting.
Second. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Wong?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker?
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.